Real talk. Real topics. Real solutions. This is MSR Forefront with your host, Stephanetta Harmon.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning into the latest edition of the MSR Forefront. I am Stephanetta Harmon, and I am excited tonight to moderate this ongoing roundtable discussion series presented by the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. We're talking issues pertinent to Black communities in Minnesota and beyond. And tonight, we are talking about the challenges, resources, legislation, and initiatives surrounding reentry in Minnesota for formerly incarcerated residents. Now, y'all know this is a hot button topic as we discuss criminal justice reform and rehabilitation for those who are serving unjust sentences to those who have paid their time in full and looking to return to society as productive citizens. In 2011, Pew Center reported that Minnesota led the nation with a 61% recidivism rate. In 2018, the state of Minnesota released a report showing that the numbers were considerably lower. Only 16% of those on probation statewide did not remain free of felony convictions for 3 years after leaving supervision in 2014, and 30% of offenders leaving supervised release in 2014 had no new felony convictions within 3 years. But, things are sounding better on paper, right? But how effective are they today in real life? And what resources are available for those who are not getting the right footing? So instead of wondering, we are exploring this conversation with 4 formerly incarcerated advocates who have navigated their way through the system and helping pay their successes forward. So I would love to introduce our guest tonight. We have Kevin Reese, a director of criminal justice, advisor Darius, who's smart justice advocate, organizer for ACLU Minnesota. We have Natalie Pollard, who is a community and reentry advocate. And we have Noelle Fay, who is also a legal fellow and reentry advocate as well. So I want to say welcome. Can we bring them in? Hey, thank you. I was hoping, your little heads pop up when I said your name. So here we are. Thank you all for joining in this conversation. Please unmute yourselves. I want us to really get into this conversation around recidivism. It's a big word for those, recidivism, talking about this rate and these statistics. But I want to put faces to it and really talk about the work that you all have done in navigating your own stories and becoming advocates and examples and inspirations for people, both who are coming out of the system and who have never been in the system. So my first thing, I guess, I want to just kind of get a sense of your stories. And I know we don't have a lot of time because y'all have some amazing stories, but if you could give me like a 1-minute preview on who you are and how the system has impacted you and what you hope to get out of this conversation tonight. That's it. I know that's a whole lot in 90 seconds, but we're going to see what we can do. Who wants to look? Elijah did this. So I want to look. You ready, Elijah? You want to kick it off? Just kind of tell us who you are and how we got here.
Yeah, I can. Yes, I can kick it off. Yeah, so my name is Elijah Darius. I work for the ACLU of Minnesota. I coordinate our Smart Justice campaign, in which we are endeavoring to reduce mass incarceration across the nation. Every last single affiliate, because we're the Minnesota affiliate, has its own strategies and tactics in order to realize that result. And so here in Minnesota, I really focus on prosecutorial reform, stretching out the electorate, and really going into atypical places and allowing for advocacy to happen in those spaces. And sometimes they shock when we show up, but you know what? They just got to get used to it, because those who are closest to wherever the issues have arrived from, those are the ones that should be most centered in helping to find those solutions, because we're directly impacted, so we know. And so, I did about 17 years in prison. I was arrested when I was a child. I was 15 years old. I decided to go to trial. I fought. I lost. In Minnesota, when you lose capital homicide trial, then the automatic sentence is life. And so I was sentenced to life as a teenager. And, I found myself inside of, various different prisons from super maximum all the way down to their minimum. But I was very fortunate to run into men in there who had the most towering characters, even to date, that I've ever ran into in my life. They mentored me, trained me, and really helped to steer my life to such a point in which I had more hope and faith in who I was and what I could do. I ultimately began studying law as well, fought, got my life sentence reversed on appeal, got out. I was very blessed to be connected with people like Nikema Levy Armstrong and others to begin doing some advocacy work to put some boots on the ground. And so we out here, we making these moves. That's just a little bit about me. And hopefully we can get into a whole lot more conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Natalie.
I was incarcerated in 2015. I am a victim of a domestic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Long story, real short. Met a guy online. I was a stay-at-home mom. Finally met him in person. Got to know who he was. Started seeing tendencies of alcohol, drug abuse. Like he drank. He had a drinking problem. I didn't like that. Then it became to where I just wanted to be friends with him. He couldn't accept no for an answer. He started to become abusive. He started to stalk me. One morning, it was July 2nd of 2015. At the time, I was 2 months pregnant. And I asked the individual to leave. He left, but he decided to come back, through a window of mine. In the process of finding out, he was trying to enter my home, we ended up getting into a scuffle, should I say, in defending myself, knowing that he was abusive and I've had prior, incidents with him. I had defended myself. Mm-hmm. In that process of defending myself, he died. I was charged in Ramsey County with second-degree unintentional murder. Was charged with his death. I ended up having my baby in prison. Going through motions with that. I ended up appealing my case. When I got to Shakopee, due to circumstances, there were errors in my instruction that ultimately had my conviction reversed. I was released from prison. I was out for 7 months. Ramsey County wanted to take me back to trial on the unintentional murder using a different jury instruction. I didn't want to do that. I asked for a plea deal. The first plea deal was to give me first degree manslaughter. Mm-hmm. I denied. I asked for second degree manslaughter. Manslaughter it was. I took the plea deal. I was on parole for a year because it was time served taking that second degree manslaughter. Once I did the parole, I completed that successfully. In the process, trying to find housing, trying to find a job, getting turned around left and right. No, we can't hire you. No, your background, Mm-hmm. So with all that, I ended up landing a job. I ended up finally being able to be blessed, our property taking a chance on me to be able to live in their property, being able to have more time and one-on-one with my children. Mm-hmm. Because that's what it was all about, was just trying to get back home to my children, because when they woke up the morning and there was a police in my townhouse, they didn't see mommy. So I didn't get that, I love you, I'll see you later. It wasn't I'll see you later. It was mommy went to jail and she never got out, so that being said, I'm here out with my kids, being able to see them, and also talking about the circumstances that I want to be a part of so this doesn't happen again.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Kevin?
Thank you, Stefanetta, for this space. First, I'm Kevin Reese. I'm Director of Criminal Justice at Voices for Racial Justice, and I'm founder of Until We Are All Free. I, too, similar to Eli, went to prison when I was a kid. From 18 to 32, I spent inside of Minnesota correctional facilities, and those were the years where kids would be in college or, becoming. So all of my becoming years, I was in prison. So I absolutely had an opportunity through like my last 6 years. I wrote here in the Spokesman Recorder. I have a tremendous amount of love for the Spokesman Recorder because that was the first time that someone said what you have to say matters and is valuable. And the Spokesman Recorder will run my articles. My angry ones I'll write from my prison cell. They'll share with the community. So how I got here is on the wings and on the back of this amazing community that I come from. And, you know, human justice is what I'm all about. And mass incarceration is just the inhumane thing that happened to me. And I'm here to talk about it.
Thank you. Noelle?
I don't know how I can follow up with all that. You guys are
Just
amazing.
rep your hood.
No, you here.
So I was incarcerated in 2016. I turned myself in for something that I did do, criminal vehicular homicide, 1 count, and then 3 counts of operator. So someone died because of me. And before that, though, I was a part of this system too. I was born in jail. I was born in prison. My mother was incarcerated. She was addicted to drugs. She was addicted to a lot of different things. She was also a prostitute at one point. After about 3 or 4 years of constantly being moved around, I was adopted into a family that had great intentions for me. And unfortunately, I had a lot of struggles growing up, a lot of bad things that happened to me, and a lot of trauma from a small child. So going into prison, I came in with all of that. I came in with all of my mental health problems, with all of the trauma from the background that I had grown up in. And I didn't know what to do. You know, I've spent my adult life seeking help and not receiving it. But luckily, the family that I was raised in, my mother, she's a very resourceful person, and I took some of that from her. I was able to learn how to communicate. I was just talking to Kevin about this earlier. I was able to learn how to communicate in a way that other people would understand what I needed. So now, after getting out of prison, after doing 3 years in prison and getting out in 2019, I decided to go to Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge because they had something I needed there. Their mental health programming and everything that they have to offer and the amount of people that they place in your corner as an individual was something that I needed, along with my relationship with God. So after getting out there, I got a job working for them. It was just a 2-month internship, but I was advocating. I was a youth prevention advocate talking to teens about drug use and the problems that come with that. And then I recently was hired for Mitchell Hamlin School of Law as a reentry legal fellow, which is an amazing honor. It's a new position. Apparently it's never been done before, but my main goal as a part of that is to provide help to the people who need help by talking to the people who don't understand them, basically. You know, so there's a big disconnect and there's a big barrier in communication, and people don't tell the people that are above us, the people that are in power aren't specifically reaching out and telling people who need help, hey, we have this for you. So that's what my goal is. That's what I aim to do. I aim to direct people based on my own. So I'm not a professional. All I have is my story, but I know what worked and what didn't work. And I'm sitting in my own apartment that I've had for 2 weeks. I'm working from the bottom up. So I'm just here to share that with you.
Can I, first of all, I got a slow clap for all of y'all because you all are inspiring and have moving messages in your story. One, whoever is tuning in right now, thank you so much for tuning in to the MSR Forefront. We're talking about reentry right now with 4 community residents, advocates, folks who have been who were formerly incarcerated and who are paying their success forward right now. If you have questions for them, if you have questions about this topic and want us to talk about it, please drop your comments in below this video because we want to hear from you. And I want to just touch on, like, you all have a story, right? You all have different ways that you got here, but you've all found success. And I would love to explore how community impacted that. And were the resources that we're talking about that are available, how hard or how easy was it to access them? And did they really do what you wanted them to do? Because that's the real thing. Like, once you walk out the doors and it's like, hi, you're supposed to make it. And people who ain't never been in ain't making it. Let's be real about that too. So you have like the double expectation. So the first question is, what role did community play for you? And then the second part of that would be, were the resources easy to access? And yeah, let's start there.
Well, I'm glad you differentiate in there, because I mean, there's a differentiation, like when we're talking about community versus resources, and those who have the ability to move resources around and give access to resources. Whether we're talking about those who are part of the nonprofit industrial complex, or governmental entities, or landlords, or like whatever that is. So that's a different conversation. But for me, in terms of community, I have been overwhelmingly embraced by community. It has been very nurturing and fulfilling. And I'm from St. Louis. I'm not from Minnesota. You know what I mean? I never lived in Minnesota before. And so for community to embrace me at the level that it had, right, with the love that it had, and with the energy and the passion that it had, to show me around, to open up spaces, to challenge me to go higher, to give me opportunities. That right there is, I would say, second to none, right? Like that right there is why I'm sitting here, able to move in the way that I am now. Because if we leave it up to them, right, those who control these resources, right, I'll be dead in the water. I mean, I found myself begging some of these so-called nonprofit organizations while I was on the other side of the wall for access to the resources that they claimed they actually had. An example, before I let this circle rotate, I called one particular organization. They had a black man on the front of the flyer. He was looking really happy, This was a man's reentry program. I had been staring at this dang flyer for probably several years, waiting on my opportunity. And so when I finally got close enough in time to finally call this dang number, they would never answer the phone. So I got three-way, and I was like, what's up? Oh, they said, well, we don't answer calls from prisons. I said, well, then how the heck are we supposed to get connected to the program? I said, well, then fine. Look, listen, I'm three-way right now. The calls wasn't even going to cost you nothing because I'm paying for them, but I'm three-way right now. I would like to get access to the program. They turned around and told me they don't offer services to any of the men in the men prisons. I said, y'all got a whole man on the front of the whole flyer, right? So I would imagine that, that's some material they give the funders, they get all these funding dollars, but now all of a sudden when it's time to access these services, ain't nothing happening. We had a reentry book with hundreds of names of landlords. Every last single one I called said, what? I don't offer no housing tell the people to get my name off of the list. So community, A+. I mean, I could not have asked for more personally. But in terms of those who got access and control over those resources, yeah, that's what a lot of work is still needed to be done. And in fact, if it wasn't for community, I'd be dead in the water.
Okay. How did you get to the resources then? Who wants to touch on that real quick? How did you get to the resources?
Well, I would say I want to go back a bit. When we're talking about community, a lot of people in prison, right? Because community or society said that they had this thing called abnormal behavior. They did this thing called anti-society, anti-social behavior is why they send you in prison. And while in prison, only thing prison does is reaffirms that every day and in every way. Right? So if there is not community that has the opportunity to intersect, people will continue to sit in those cells and feel that the community is anti them. So this is where those big, bright plans of more criminality comes from, because people are feeling like disconnected. Community is an abstract term. It's not real. So I know for me, it shifted when community became real, like real people, real actual people who poured into me, and my community became real people. And my sense of loyalty that my grandmother gave me, the same sense of loyalty that I've always had in my real life. I'm a real one. I know how to reciprocate when people are showing me love. So very similar to Eli, this local community here in Minneapolis, the same way, Minneapolis and St. Paul, I couldn't tell you enough about how much I am a result of this community, right? It's not all of the answers, but Kevin Reese can tell you, Minneapolis, hey, no, I am a result of the community. So every time I'm in space or every time I'm doing that, know that I've been fed by community. I've been fed by my brother Eli here so much. Like I have a wealth of support and love around. That's because, and this is made of real people, community. And then when we get to talking about resources, right? Without community, without relationships, you ain't gonna get to the resources, right? The resources, like you better, like it comes through people, it comes through community. So for me, having access to it was having access through community, being able to be in relationships and being able to transcend some of those spaces and be in those spaces and be valued in those spaces for what you have to contribute. So for me, a lot of the times people are like kind of, you know, shift under the rug because they don't necessarily feel that connection to community. There's a whole nother part of our community that is not connected to none of the movement work we do, right? We ride past them though over north, right? There's a whole other part of our community who don't even feel access to conversations like this. They look just like all of us too. There's a whole nother part of our community who feel that the politics is for others. It's not for them. There's no seat at the table. There's a whole part of our community that still feels that way, and they don't have access to the resources. So for me, it was through community and through relationships how we were able to get at the table and not only have access to the resources, but have opportunity to point where the resources should go. So what was available? Luckily enough, I had so much community support and family support for me that I never necessarily have to do it in that way. But what I do know that the stuff that is available is not necessarily connected to every individual because everybody is we're individuals. So they have these centralized approaches to it, like one size fits all, and it doesn't work. So when they try to fit people into like round pegs and it don't work, they will say that the individual didn't work, not the treatment. Right. So a lot of the time, you know, what people need is not afforded. They don't get what they need. Everybody needs something a little bit different. So I believe we get to the solution to that by changing community from an abstract term. And we can't start investing in people like at reentry. It's too late. People at reentry. We need to catch people when they're in those cells and they feeling disconnected from community and disconnected from their family and disconnected from this thing that we call society. Right, we need to reach them then and say you are loved, you are valuable, and there's a seat here for you. They're gonna spend the rest of their time in prison preparing to what they're gonna do to come home and contribute to it.
So we hear that on the brother side. Natalie, Noel, was that the same for you on your side for the women's? With the disconnect with this abstract idea and then not being able to even pinpoint those resources without having someone to walk you through to them.
When I found out that my appeal came through, I immediately got into survival mode, and I wasn't even out of prison yet. Survival, when I mean survival mode, was meaning, okay, I know that I have money on my JPay card. You know, it's a card that we get when we get released. How was I going to utilize this money? I need a vehicle. I got my driver's license reinstated when I was in there. I took the written test and passed. So when I got out, I had my yellow paper. So all I had to do was go, you know, get to the DMV and get my driver's license.
That was in there stacking that cake up. Okay.
What? So when I got out, I had a significant amount of change. And first thing I was thinking about, okay, I need to give me some clothes. I basically, I don't know how to say it. I'm not trying to sound like it's all about me, but I basically was my own resource. You know what I'm saying? I had to think, what do I remember from, you know, being a single mom, trying to find resources to get like all these places that I remember and people that I network with from like church. I'm thinking of all this stuff while I'm in prison. You know, pace like you know how an animal or a lion pace back and forth in a cave, like they thinking, what am I going to do? I know I'm going to get out. What am I going to do? So I got into that mode. And when I got out, first thing was to give me some clothes, got me some clothes. Second thing was, all right, I need a vehicle. I can't do this train. I can't do this bus. Because the next thing I was thinking was temp services. Let me figure out a little resume. Let me tweak it real quick. I had all of this stuff real quick getting out. So I had to figure how was I going to get on my feet and be able to have a vehicle and then try to be able to find some type of job so I can navigate maybe a studio. The fight was to find some housing. I got out. I went to one place that I remember used to come to Shakopee and talk to the ladies. When I got out, I remember that name and I went to that location. When I went up there, it was like, you know, a table and it had resources like pamphlets and stuff like that. So I asked a couple questions and then they gave me like a little care package. And I was like, I don't need a care package. I need a job. You know what I'm saying? I was told, I remember coming here, you know, coming out of incarceration. I remember this name. I locked it in my brain. So I'm coming here trying to see, you know, what could be helpful for somebody like me coming out of prison. Oh, well, you can just grab these pamphlets and call the numbers on there. And if we have any other resources, we can give you a call. And but for now, that's pretty much all we have. Okay, thank you. So I took that, looked through there, called United Way. I mean, I like to talk you get a lot out of a conversation. So in coming into meeting with people when I was working at temp services, I was asking questions. Hey, you know of like a job where they hire people who have a felony background, or would you know of a property that takes people, you know? So I've always, when I'm meeting and connecting with people, I'm always asking questions. How I ended up to this very point where I'm at, I was blessed to work at Restaurant Depot, and it was in St. Paul. And I used to be a cashier there. People come through the line all the time. I ended up coming across a woman, and I was talking to her, actually, a friend of mine that I met through another good friend of mine, Erica Garrity, the director of the Prison Doula Project. And she's also my doula while I was pregnant in Ramsey County and at Shakopee. Love her. Hi, Erica, if she's watching. Anyway, I got introduced to a friend of mine through her, and I seen him come through the line one day. He was getting some stuff for a restaurant. I said, man, I didn't know you worked at a restaurant. He said, yeah. He said, you should apply, you know, and you should come check it out. And so it so happened that he told me who owned the restaurant, and her name is Emily Hunt, and she's the founder of All Square. Love her. Hi, Emily. So I actually, one day she came through my same line, cashiering, and she gave me her the Restaurant Depot card. And I was like, Emily Hunt. I said, I remember that name. I said, you know Tommy Franklin? And she says, yes. And I was like, he told me to come to All Square. And she was like, absolutely. So long story short with that, I went to All Square. I got a job there. In working at All Square.
Can you share what All Square is? Because folks don't know the service that they provide. Real quick, just real one sentence, real quick.
All Square is a 5-star grilled cheese restaurant located.
Well, don't even matter where it's located. What does she focus on? On hiring?
She focused on hiring people who have been formerly incarcerated, who had a barrier. Like someone who had a background, whether it's a misdemeanor. She helped people who had barriers to housing and who were formerly incarcerated get jobs, and to start them with having a job history. And
super important.
So we made gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches and had a lot of support from the community. Great, mate. Okay. Check out All Square. They're still open. You know, might have to reserve you a spot, but they're definitely worked at All Square, and in connection with them, it was a psychologist I was working with. She pointed me in direction of a women's group that basically focused on the housing issues in the Black community. In working in that group, there was someone who heard, I was telling my story to. She made, when I tell you, people come into your life as lessons and blessings. And continuing to pray, to stay in prayer, and continuing to ask questions, and continuing to be hopeful and faithful. This woman basically came into my life, was like, I'm going to help you get an apartment. I know it's going to be a little while. There's some things that I have to do, but there's some things you have to do as well. I did everything that I needed to do, asked for letters of recommendation, provided the reason why I was incarcerated, provided the reason why I felt like they should let me rent, everything as far as being talking about my kids. So being able to be blessed, that's how it led up to me being able to have an apartment.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I started out coming out of incarceration like as my own resource, navigating what I remembered, you know, and talking and networking, asking questions.
And Noelle, that piece, I know we're coming along here. I'm really asking this because a lot of times we talk about recidivism and criminal justice reform, we forget to hear the stories, right? We always talk about the numbers and how a system is failing us, but I know a community is uplifting us. And so I want to have this conversation, and we can come back to what we need to hold folks accountable on, because trust, that's going to happen next, and where we can get resources. But Noelle, can you tell how the community impacted you? And I know you mentioned in your first, go round about the resources not being readily available to you, but you were able to find them. So what was that process like for you?
All right. So I'm not from Minnesota either. I was actually born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. And I lived in a lot of different states after that. I joined the military. I was in Virginia. I was in Florida. I was in Alabama, Georgia. I've moved all around. And in that process, I've learned that each state is completely different with how they want to help you or not help you. So kind of had to learn how to survive. I was homeless for a little bit because my ex-husband was incarcerated for 10 years for robbery, for armed robbery, $500. And so now I've got myself and my son to take care of. So I left my son with my mother-in-law at the time. And I went and did what I had to do, or what I thought I had to do at the time. So I've been somewhat of a wanderer. I've never understood the sense of community that a lot of people talk about. I was moved from home to home when I was at like the core ages, when you're supposed to know that you're loved and you belong. And so that I grew up with that mentality, thinking that I had to do this on my own, that I was always alone. And so going into Minnesota prison to Shakopee, I was here for all of 3 weeks before I got into the accident. And then I went home to Detroit or to Michigan, and then I came back and turned myself in. I didn't know anyone. I had no clue about Minnesota, what they had to offer. All I had to go on was the pamphlets that they had, so because of my charge, I had to go through treatment. And while I was in there, and they had this little resource room, they wanted to call it resource room. And really what it was a place where you can get arts and crafts. So, we like the glitter and the construction paper and all that stuff. That's what they had to offer us. Now they had all of these resources. And the resources were in pamphlets tucked down underneath things, back in the back of things. Nothing was organized. Nobody ever asked for them. Nobody ever told us that they were there. So I heard about Teen Challenge through someone named Gina Evans. And Gina Evans is an amazing, amazing woman. And when I heard her speak, I knew I wanted that power behind her voice. Whatever got her there, I wanted it. So I followed that path, and after a while, I started developing relationships with older women who would help me and guide me, or just be a listening ear. But ultimately, I found that resource on my own. And after going to Teen Challenge, I got as much as I could from them. I won't say that everything about it was perfect, because it wasn't. But the biggest thing I got from them was mental health. And that was getting a psychiatrist, getting on the right medication for undiagnosed mental health disorders, making sure that my PTSD was taken care of, starting therapy, because everyone needs a therapist. But all of these things I came to realize on my own that I needed, or else I wouldn't be able to function as an adult. And no one was telling me that I needed them. I didn't know that the things I went through wasn't normal until the first time I went to prison, so I struggled with that. Now, getting out of Teen Challenge, I thought for sure I was going to stay with their program. I knew without a doubt, but they told me that I couldn't go to their leadership program because I had, because my mental health was on red, or orange, for the whole time that I was in there. So because I had this mental health disorder, because I was honest and open about the things that I was going through, they denied me access to that place. So I was heartbroken. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how, that was my
offer you services to help with the mental health, but they identified it.
So I had a psychiatrist who was outside of Teen Challenge, and I still stick with her. Okay. They introduced me to her, and then I found a therapist through Nystrom and Associates. So that was something I had to do on my own. I had to call. So other than that, what they provided me was personal development skills, was the ability to communicate and have boundaries, and things that they don't teach us growing up, because apparently that's not important enough to put in our lessons. So why I am here right now is because of the individuals that have come into my life. Like Natalie said, there's just one person here that will come in, and that person saved my life and they don't even know it. It was never a community. So that's where I've been. So getting my apartment, I went on Facebook Marketplace. This is a new thing for me. I went on Facebook Marketplace and I called every one of those people that for the apartments I wanted. And the first thing I said was, listen, I don't want to waste your time and I don't want you to waste mine. I have this felony. If you want to know more about it, that's fine, but I can pay the rent. And most of them said no. And I made sure I didn't call any of the corporations or the major hubs for finding a place to stay because I knew they would say no. I mean, you got a death on your record. Why would they want you there? You're irresponsible, all the labels. So I just so happened to find this nice Russian guy who didn't care about that. Apparently he went to prison in Russia when it was called the Soviet Union. So he wasn't too concerned about that part. He just wanted to know that I could pay rent. That's how my process went. So I like to say that I had the community, and yes, Teen Challenge did provide me with a place to feel safe so that I wouldn't be homeless, and they provided me with the skills that I needed. But for the most part, this process has been one step at a time, one day at a time.
So all of you, again, different stories, but same common thread of finding the people, a person, a community that wasn't necessarily the standard resource that is being built or communicated in the real world, right? So we see all these policies, we see
let me lift up POP, power of people. I didn't mention that, but power of people, literally, can you hear me?
Yes, okay. Sorry.
You're getting all close to the monitor.
I'm just like, because you're far away, and I felt like I could get closer, but it didn't work that way for me. Okay.
No, but power of people with Shane Price, that was the first independent living space that I ever had in my life.
Oh, okay.
Shane Price got me my first car and challenged me to start driving. And but he's not systems, he's community as well. But it's people like that and the situations like that. So I do want to pause and lift up power of people just because of how many lives that program is pouring into, like mines. So since we're talking about like the resources and what was available, POP most definitely was and still is available. It's the largest reentry group right now, ongoing.
Okay. If anyone's tuning in who has questions, please drop them for our 4 guests tonight. I want to circle now into, and Kevin actually wrote this a while ago and talked about, first spokesman, when you had talked about that the system on paper was meant, there was all about reform and rehabilitation, but in practice, it wasn't there for you. And so there was that disconnect that you did touch on, and I'm just seeing it in everyone's conversation about you're in a place that's supposed to provide rehabilitation. I know that some of you, like Eliza, I know your story, you fought for education, you fought for courses when they weren't readily available to you, or they gave you a runaround for it. And it seems like you had to continue to fight over and over for things that were supposed to be readily accessible to you. What is missing in this conversation? What is missing in the policies piece of it, the programming piece of it, that would have helped you better be prepared for when you got out? Because, Natalie sounded like she was on it, like I'm on my own. Everybody sounded like they were on their own while they're in a system that was supposed to have a system response for them.
Well, I would say, for me, again, I spent from 18 to 32 inside of prison. So those are real developmental years, just the social aspect of it. So you can sit in your prison cell and you can read all the books. You can read the autobiography of Malcolm X, front and back and forth. You can read you can conceptualize, you can do all of that. But there is no way to skip experience, right? There's no way to skip what it means, the social settings, what it means. So what wasn't available is enough of an opportunity to a part of my rehabilitation, whatever that thing they was calling rehabilitation, to have the community and my family more engaged and more involved. Because what they was doing, they're limiting the amount of access. So I can get skills, but they won't be transferable skills because they're not connected to the community. So everything that I'm learning, if it's not connected to the community, then when I go home, it will be obsolete. Like a lot of the programs inside of prison, you feel that way. You can come, those certificates and stuff you get in there, they're not worth the paper that they're printed on because they're not connected to community. So I know for me, one of the things was missing was an opportunity to build with folks in this world, beyond that world, so I can be more prepared to come back to this world and swim. Another thing that I heard from everyone, and I'm super anti this, and I salute to all of y'all. And, you know, we are, although and in spite of, I heard from everyone, everything that we got, we had to go like get. There was nothing given for. There's no inheritance. There's nothing given for us. We all had to like swim and kick down doors, cut down trees in order to like figure out a way in order for us to be able to exist. So the other thing is right now, the current way that the carceral state is set up, it's almost a foolish plan, right? The plan is a foolish plan because we're going to send people into this traumatized spot with all traumatized people, and it's just going to be all this trauma reverberating, right? Around, then send them back to their family, traumatized, right? So I think the whole way in which we look at this thing we call someone made a mistake that we don't like, that's anti this thing we call society, we send them to this place called prison, they sit there for a period of time, and they come home. The whole entire process to me is stupid. Like, who would even make up a process like this? It does not make sense. So what needs to be in place is a whole nother thing. This current thing that we do does not help people. It actually hurts people, and it's not actually making people better. Or we can just tell the truth and just say, oh yeah, man, America can't go without their slaves, man. Just tell the truth.
Okay.
So what's
we
missing
got a part two.
Okay.
Got a part two to this. Is
Yeah,
what I'm
so,
hearing.
all of those things. But the whole entire thing is stupid and it need to be redone.
Okay. Anyone else want to tag in on that, or did he get it all?
Nah, he got a
Just
lot
the
of
whole
it.
thing is stupid and need to be redone, like he said.
Okay.
I mean, definitely part two would be necessary.
Simply put.
for
Yeah.
that particular part for sure.
We definitely that right there on how we can reframe this conversation. I definitely want to have that as a part two. But we're still on this part one right now. We're talking. we're going through this piece that's missing, right? And then I'm seeing other programs like Eliza. I know that you are active in something called Minnesota Second Chance Day with the Second Chance Coalition. Are you part of that, Eliza?
You mean Kevin?
No, who's part of the Second Chance Day?
I'm gonna be speaking next week.
Oh, okay. Why did I think you were a part of that,
Because
Eliza?
he might be, ain't no telling. We really interchangeable out here these days.
No,
so ain't
y'all know. Y'all look alike. No, we don't
I
all
might be speaking. I don't know.
he literally
No,
might
okay,
be
well,
on the
you were
agenda.
part of
I'm not part of them, no.
Okay, you're not part of it.
But
But you
I'm not part of them either. I'll just be speaking this year there.
okay, so no one's a part of it, but we understand that someone may be speaking on it. But this is a real event that's happening next week on about Second Chance Day, about giving people an opportunity to vote, right?
Oh yeah, I'm speaking at that.
You know what? I'm not messing with you, Eliza.
No, Representative Cedric Frazier hit me up about it. And I said, yeah.
Okay, yeah, me too.
I'm like, I swore that you were. This is why this is called a kitchen conversation, y'all, because this is really at the table. And this is how we have these conversations. So Second Chance Day is happening next week. And it's really about, so we're talking about, what is it? Some people are on 40 years worth of probation when they get out. 40 years? 40 years of probation?
That's just
And the real kicker is that like they really be busting them rural Minnesotans to the white meat, like all of them farmers and fishermen, and like, they be catching them up here and then with 10, 20, 30 years. And so like, y'all ain't just like hitting us with it, y'all hitting them with it. But we did do a lot of organizing over the multiple years, actually, which culminated last year. And so right now, statewide in Minnesota, there's a cap on the amount of probation that someone can get. And that cap now, and this is really recent, this is like within the last year, this cap came. Yeah. But that was us organizing. And actually, someone formerly incarcerated was actually part of the Sentencing Guidelines Commission that created that. And so now no one can receive more than 5 years of probation. If there's any kind of a departure, it can only be slight, and they got to state very specific reasons.
Okay. And so let's talk about this. The Second Chance Day on the Hill is happening on the 23rd, which is next week. And it's Second Chance Day on the Hill by the Minnesota Second Chance Coalition. What exactly are we doing when people show up for this? Real quick, I'm going to drop a link in the comments, y'all, for those who don't have information, but I just want to get a little sense of it, because people are wondering, what are the resources outside of just this conversation? Like, who can they go to, or where can they do something that's active?
Well, I know for me, the Second Chance Coalition will be an opportunity for folks to kind of be informed
Mhm.
It's more informational to be aware of what's the issues may be.
Okay.
And if any of those issues is connected to them, where they'll be able to know where to go to advocate, right? Or, seek support, whatever their acts may be, they'll have a better idea about, the landscape. Because again, like I said, us who be in movement work, there's a privilege to this. I'm gonna be honest, like, because I come from nothing. Eli, I know I come from the other side of the track. So being like, a part of the community where people call you and tell you about stuff that's going on. I'm from the ghetto. I know my grandma didn't get no calls about what was going on. So I know this is very different for me. This is generational. This is different. But I know for me, the second chance day is going to be about making sure that I know for me, I'm going to push. A lot of folks didn't get a first chance, right? So the privilege of like having a second chance is a lot of privileges that we didn't even get afforded that. So I will be there to just speak my truth, right? And that truth is, I'm gonna go back to that whole entire thing that we do to people is wrong, and actually it's criminal. And I'm gonna quote one of the Mr. Wilson. He told me one day, the criminal justice system ain't nothing but the white man's welfare system. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So bless everybody. All right.
Okay. So there's this rally, right, happening next week. That's one piece. What you all have different organizations that you are part of. I know there's a question, even our publisher asked, is there any one place that people can go to get support, or is it kind of this potluck conversation that we're having now? Like, is there a link that we can go to? Is there a number that y'all laughing? See, stop.
There is no. The answer is sadly no. The answer is there is no place to go. That there's no one central place that you can go. Here, there's a safe refuge for you. No, it's very much potluck, like you said, and very scattered. And if you don't got family support behind you, good luck. Like, even with the best institutional support, if there's not some infrastructure around you to help you even get up there, because you need a ride up there. If you ain't got nobody to at least give you a ride up there, the answer is none.
So the challenge is then, it's not even just accessing the resources, it's being able to access a way to get to the resources.
Yes, to have your life still enough where that makes sense. To have your life in alignment enough to even be able to go on the process. Because some of those groups and programs, it takes time. It's a process. They want you to come to this many meetings, and people be hungry and homeless now. So by the time the third week, I've been sleeping outside. I'm froze. I'm hungry. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna make it to the fourth week. So no one program exists that will be able to help anyone with all of their needs when we're talking about reentry. There's not one program, no.
Wow. So, but what I'm going to need from all of y'all, because I got all your emails, is you're going to tag me and drop every link that you have connected with, so we can have you guys as a resource link. Because right now, this conversation is touching so many people in the comments. They're like, no one talked to them about it like this. Because, we hear the other side about how things are failing, but we're seeing you, and you guys are all still shining examples and inspirations to other folks who are coming out, who are looking for a new chance. You made your own way, and you were able to enlist community to do that. So yeah, I'm gonna need all your links. What are you doing? I'm seriously, like on a day-to-day. You have, Voices of Racial Justice. What are you doing with that on a day-to-day? What does that look like, and how is that impacting this movement of giving new opportunities for people coming back into the real world?
For sure. I know at VRJ, the bridge program that I'm still the director of criminal justice that I run every day. What was important there was to create space to have similar conversations like this, because the reality is, I would tell everyone, nobody ain't gonna help you like you help yourself, right? Like, there's no one organization that will help you from A to Z. So to create space to have these conversations, and then the follow-up to be, okay, but I can get a little help with this, but I can get a little help with that. That's first and foremost. Second, I answer calls every day from the brothers and sisters who's currently incarcerated, right? And making community concrete to them, making community not an abstract term to them no more. Like, community is like me, and I can introduce them to other people as my friend and as my colleague, not an offender, not an inmate. No, as one of ours. Minneapolis, I introduce them as Minneapolis own to folks, to make sure that they have what they need while they're still in there, to keep the hope, to make sure that they have books, make sure they got money on their books, make sure that they can be able to call their family, and making sure that I'm like a embodiment of being a resource to them, because that's what community was for me. being a resource to them. And not until we are all free, man, we here to get it all back. We are here. James Baldwin sent us. Like, we are here. We're the fire next time. We are the generation of people who were directly impacted by mass incarceration, and we are back to get it all. And that's what we do every day. So anybody can hit me up with that. I pull up on a lot of real-time stuff. But until we are all free, I'm still really building. But right now, I move as a real one. So just hit me up and we can have a real conversation, and whatever I could do for you, it'll be done.
Okay. Noel, you're a legal fellow. What is you chose to get into the legal justice system after this? So you know that was not missed by me. Trust. You went from incarceration to being a legal fellow at Mitchell Hamlin. You know, Hamlin's my alma mater. So let's really talk about this. Like, that process for you, and what do you see that is impacting change for you and the community around you and folks who are coming out right now?
Okay, well, I had to let you know. Like, you know,
Yes.
I have been blessed, beyond blessed where I am, you know, and it came from that one individual person. You know, it was always that one. Brad. I met Brad because he dealt with some of my cases. I was being sued. I had a civil suit against me for wrongful death. And without him, I don't know if that would have gotten solved or fixed the way that it did. They dropped the suit, you know. So coming out of prison, there would have been that. I would have been working just to work and to work and to work. So yeah, I got that blessing from him. So I got a call from him or emails telling me about this position and what I've learned thus far, because I've been working there for 2 weeks now. What I've learned thus far is that I already know how to do everything that I'm supposed to do. You know, we just need more people to advocate for these people who don't know that, like, it doesn't take very much to get a driver's license if your driver's license is suspended. I have to get it. I'm on a limited license. So I drive for work purposes. You know what I'm saying? I was on parole. Like, what happens after you get off from parole? Like, what happens during parole? Can you go and do this? Can you do that? Who do you owe money to? You know, can we get that paid for? In housing and expungements. I mean, learning about the difference between an expungement and a pardon is probably the best part of this job, because how many people have been, or what I've recently learned is that how many years has it been since the last person had a pardon extraordinary before mine, right? Is that what he had? He had a commutation, right? So how many years was it before that? You know? Wow. Too many. So the focus is to try to get people those resources to get over the barriers that they have, you know, that allow you, like, why do you have to have a pardon or an expungement to get a job or to get a place to stay or to buy a car? You know, I tried to invest in a newer car, and I had the guy tell me on the phone, no one is ever gonna sell to you, so you should just take this offer.
What?
It was like $400 a month. For $450 a month for 2016 something. He's like, no one is ever going to invest in you. No one's going to give you this loan. Like, you know, so it just doesn't make any sense to me that I'm sorry, that really made me mad. You know, it just doesn't make any sense that we have to go through all of that. To me, that they have to go through 3 to 6 months, or 6 to 12 months of waiting period just to be told it's okay, now you can go and look for a job, because they won't know that we put you in prison or that this is on your record, you know. So that is the main part, is the pardons and the expungements, and hopefully we can get more of that going. But there's also the bankruptcies, because sometimes people need help with their debt. There's also the driver's license, because sometimes people don't know that all they got to do is pay the $680 to get their license back, you know. And it's as simple as that. Sometimes people just need to know that if they don't go to a major corporation or one of these big companies who are renting apartments, that they can get an apartment on their own, you know. So it's basically just finding those resources and connecting people together.
So, you know, in this legal fellow position now, we are going to tap you so that we can share some of these resources for the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. I'm just saying, like, you all have a wealth of information, every last one of you, to share with the community in different ways. So what?
I have to give this to Brad Colbert and to John Geffen. Okay. You know, I don't think they know about this yet. They will tomorrow. But they are the reason why I have this job, and they are fighting. You know, there's not very many people who are in power like that, who have that, who will listen to what we have to say. And he sits down and he listens to me, and he listens to everyone, both of them. They listen to everyone who they come into contact with. And so it's thanks to them that I have this job, you know, so I can give that to them.
Okay. So, Natalie, Eliza, who wants to tap in next? Jump in on like the impact that you want to continue having with the work that you're doing. Okay, Nat.
What I have in mind, I want to say, you know, like your 5-year goal, or where do you see yourself in 5 years? I can't say exactly 5 years, but the goal that I do want to have is, and I'm going to continue to speak it into existence, is I want to find like a property, a building, an apartment building, or something. I've had my eye on a building that's right over in Minneapolis, and it's been closed down for a very, very, very long time. And I've been always curious of what they're doing with this building. But to eventually have a space of area where women who have barriers to housing or who have been formerly incarcerated and don't have anywhere to parole to. You know, if they don't have to go to a halfway house, they say, well, I don't have nowhere to go. Then that's where they would be pointed in my direction, saying, well, this is an organization that helps women who are coming out and don't have, like, you know, resources or finding a job. You know, you'll have some stable housing. It's basically like a transitional organization that I want to establish, knowing that I had to be my own resource, you know, being able to give back to women so they don't have to work so, I don't have to struggle so hard, saying, here are these resources, you know, that you have. And as far as like housing, I can't say how many units or whatnot, but just be like a starter building, you know what I mean? And branch off from there to like be able to just help more women, especially. There's could be some resources thrown in there for men, but men got a lot of resources. They got a lot of stuff happening for them, but I'm just more or less focused on
Liza's like, where?
like they got a lot of stuff happening for them, you know, like they got Pursuit over South, they got the Freedom Works right here on over north, right off of, you know, Broadway or whatever. You know, I'm just trying to think. They got like I'm trying to think where they got like little places for women, unless you go to like
We'll find them. We'll find them and we'll drop them, especially for women with you talking about giving birth while incarcerated. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a part 3.
Yeah.
No, these are ongoing conversations. So I love that you all are seeing a future that you're creating from your past. You know what I mean? Like each one of you. And Eliza, like if you could touch on briefly what, you know, the impact that you want to have. I know this is only an hour. We could go on for 12. We could really, this is, you know.
And I'll say the impact that I am having and that I'll continue to have. Policy is my love language. And so policy change is the way to really, you know, serenade me. And so just to continue to like advocate for changes in laws, practices, procedures, accountability. I love accountability. I love bringing accountability. I love situating myself and those that I love to such an extent that we can hold people who thought they were empowered accountable. And Noel, that particular position that you're talking about, we actually helped to shape and fashion that thing. People like me and Kevin, they came to us and we helped to shape and fashion that, right? We created that. You know what I mean? Because we're in these spaces and places. We are empowered. We have the ability to use our voices and our power to create the change that we want to see in this world. You know, we ain't the tail. We ain't none of that stuff, right? We're sitting around the tables as equals, pushing and driving this agenda. And for me, that's exactly what I'm going to continue to do. Continue to level up so that I can continue to bring those, you know, who are with me and give more access to more opportunities and more resources. So that's what I'm just going to continue to do.
Thank you. No, seriously, this We have so many different layers to peel on this conversation. I just really wanted to make sure that we were sharing your stories today. I hope to bring you all back in different capacities to talk about those policies, to talk about the programs, to talk about the resources needed to open your own center, to be able to share the resource knowledge that you're even finding that we can share with the community. All that needs to live here in the community, because the community involvement we're seeing right now is the biggest piece for resources, access, education, information, and how you move forward, how you push forward. And so I just want to say thank you. I also want to just send a big thank you from our publisher, Tracy Williams
I'm
Dillard.
about to send some love.
Yeah, she popped on here
I
real
was about
quick.
to send some love. I wasn't finna
Yes.
sign off until I send love to the entire.
I'm talking about the first time I ever touched a stage, right, and got paid for it. Tracy.
See, Tracy, look, she takes care. And so
the first time I was ever published was Tracy. I met her because you brought her to our 2014 Black History Month celebration, Eli, and she got up on the stage and she didn't know she was talking to me, but she was, and she was like, if you want to write something. So just a tremendous amount of love for the whole entire Spokesman Recorder family. I don't want to be in a Minneapolis that the Spokesman Recorder ain't in. So I love y'all all so much. And I want to give space to Sister Noel and Natalie as well. Eli, I see you Saturday, man. Ain't nobody worried about you. Just I know the experience of them sisters going through the Shakopee Correctional Facility. I know it hurts our bodies the same, but when our sisters go to jail, it's a different thing.
It's a totally different thing. And so definitely we're going to continue this conversation, but I thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for your comments, for your love, and for just hearing all of this information that we're just not getting in a story, right? We're not getting this in an article. This right here, this Roundtable Kitchen conversation is it. So tune in. We'll be doing this hopefully at least monthly, at least every other week, some conversations related to Black Minnesota in the issues that are really affecting us here. Again, I'm Stefanetta Harmon. This is the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, MSR Forefront. Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefanetta, for holding the space.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Peace and love to
all the
y'all.
notes in here too. So
Good night, Stefanetta. Thank you.
Good night.
All right,
thank
peace.
you.
We ain't gonna do
Oh, they all left?